Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sarah, this is my granny era, and today I am sharing with you guys a bookish tag that I made up. It's my first tag that I made up. I love doing tags. I don't know if it's just because I like talking about myself, that is probably it, but I'll just put that out there to be honest. But I wanted to make this tag because I had a question for everybody, and rather than like making a video and asking you a question, I decided to do a tag. So this is the Bookish Elements Tag. These are all things that are like stuff accoutrements, right? Stuff we need, stuff we use, stuff that goes along with our reading. Or stuff that's just part of our reading. I don't know, you'll see what I mean. But like I said, I set up this tag just because I had one question, and that is going to be question number one. Question number one is, how do you feel about foreshadowing or dropped hints? Now, I just was thinking about this when I was reading the book called A Spinner in the Sun by Myrtle Reed. I read that last month, and I talked about this in my December wrap-up. I was blown away by what happened. Something happened to turn this whole story around and to just shed light on everything. So this is a probably little-known Victorian romantic sort of story. I guess I wasn't giving the story enough credit until I got to that point. I was just like, yeah, it's just another one of those Victorian stories, you know, moral tale, blah, blah, blah. Like, I was liking it. I was enjoying the story. I was into it. But then something happened, and I just put the book down. I was like, what? Because to me, there was no foreshadowing. There was no anything leading up to this. It was just like, bam, that happened. And I was blown out of the water. And maybe I just missed it. Maybe I was distracted and I missed the foreshadowing, but I'm really good about that usually, about catching the dropped hints, even to the point where it's actually really irritating to me when I'm going through a book and I figure it out, right? And there's still like 300 pages left. I'm just like, ugh. So I'm reading about like, okay, how are they going to make this happen rather than what's going to happen? So I get really irritated by foreshadowing or dropped hints. So that book really surprised me, but as opposed to another book that I read last month called The Moonlight School, and that is a story all about literacy in Kentucky. Like, you guys probably remember me talking about that last month too. And in that book, like, what was going to happen was obvious, just not even 100 pages in. So then you're reading to see, like, how is this going to happen, right? How is this going to come out? The big secret is pretty clear because there's so much foreshadowing. There's so many, you know, red herrings and just all these things that make it really clear what is going on here. So how do you prefer? Do you prefer to be completely shocked like I was with the first book, or do you prefer to have a pretty good idea of what's going to happen? Does that make you feel more comfortable if you know what's happening and you just, you know, are along for the ride to see how it happens? And I was also thinking about this. I promise you, all my answers to the other questions aren't going to be this long. Like I said, I want to make this tag because I want to talk about this. But for people who read and write a lot, I wonder, like for me, I read and write a lot. And I guess we could look at it two ways. Those can be annoying, right? Like I mentioned, of why they annoy me. But they also could be interesting to study the different ways in which an author makes something come about, right? Especially when we're looking at obvious tropes, right? So we know what's going to happen because this is a trope, but how are they going to do it? Are they going to do it in a unique way? You know, so it is a way to study that, I guess, but that's not why I'm reading. So it annoys me. All right, moving on to question number two. Bookmarks. What do you use? And how do you feel about bending the corner down in your book? Okay, so for bookmarks, I use anything available. I do have a ton of bookmarks. I have so many bookmarks. And I do like to use them, and I'll pull out certain pretty ones. And sometimes I'll even look for one that matches the book I'm reading. And sometimes when I unhaul a book, I will actually send the bookmark with it because it became a part of the book, right? It's part of its history. So I'll send it along with it. So I do have actual bookmarks that I use, but I will use a receipt, I'll use a candy wrapper, I will use my phone, I will just set it, you know, upside down on the bed. I use all kinds of things, a pen, like just whatever's around. If I can't find something, I'm fine with using whatever. I don't go searching out a bookmark. So if there's not an actual bookmark sitting there, I just use whatever I can find. And I'm so sorry to say this, but I am okay with bending down the corner from time to time. If it's a brand new book, super nice condition, especially if it's hardback, I won't usually do that. But I'm not opposed to do it. Like if I was desperate, I would. But if it's just an old paperback and it's no big deal, it's already written in, it's already creased, yeah, I will fold down the corners. All right, number 3, forgotten bookmarks. Have you ever found something strange in a book? Now, before I moved all of my book conversations to YouTube, I had a blog that I kept up really regularly. I still have it. I just don't keep it up very regularly. It's called Bell's Library. I think the link is in the description box. But anyway, on there, I have a series that I would do every now and then when I would find some kind of neat bookmark in a book that had been there for so long. And recently I showed you guys a book that it was the Marie Curie book that my mom sent me. And if you guys remember, there was a leather bookmark that had been left in that book for so long that the leather had actually stained the pages that it was on. So that was kind of interesting. But other kinds of interesting, forgotten bookmarks that weren't actually supposed to be a bookmark. Like I found a article on a woman who was part of a Mormon commune or something in the 1800s. I found a newspaper article on that one time. I have found recipes. I found comics. I found a really neat old comic from really early 1900s about Peter Rabbit. I actually found a Victorian bookmark. It was like, it was somebody's college graduation. I need to find that and show you guys. You would think this is so neat. But it was somebody's college graduation, like, announcement. It wasn't college. It was a high school graduation announcement that this high school gave out, as a little, when you get like the program, right? You stand in line, you're going into the event and they hand you the paper program. Okay, well, that's what they were handing out, but they're bookmarks. And it was more like a rectangle. It wasn't like our standard long skinny thing. It was like a rectangle like this big and embossed and just beautiful. And it listed all the graduates and then just like, some little sentiments about the school and the year, whatever. And it said the school and the place and the year and the date and whatever. It was so beautiful. And I found that as a bookmark in a book at one time. Usually when I find a book that has something in it, I leave it in there unless it's just too beautiful, like the bookmark I just described. I kept that. All right, number 4, inscriptions and annotations. How do you feel about writing in your books? Do you annotate? And if so, tell us about it. So I am totally fine with writing in a book. I've always written my name inside of my books and the date that I finished them. If it's a book that I know I'm going to keep in my collection forever, I will write my name and the date that I got it. And a lot of times I'll write where I got it, especially if I had been traveling. And so I'll, write, where I got it, what I was doing. This past August, I took one of my daughters out for her birthday. We went to Michigan. My husband and I and 2 of our children went to Michigan for the weekend, and it happened to be over my daughter's 13th birthday weekend. And so she and I spent the weekend book shopping and hanging out at the hotel while my son and my husband spent the weekend playing games with friends at this tournament thing. Anyway, all of the shops that we went to that were book shops, I bought different books at different shops, and when we got back to the hotel, I would write what shop I got it in, and then I would write that I got it on Cynthia's 13th birthday trip to Michigan. And so I think that's a really sweet thing. I've come across books like that where people will just list out the whole history of what was going on at the time that they acquired this book. So I'm okay with writing in the front of it. And I didn't used to do annotations though. Underlining things, writing notes on the pages of the book. I didn't used to do that. I would always just write things out in a journal or usually just leave it, online, like on Book Crossing or on Goodreads or something. But lately I have actually been annotating in my books, underlining, writing notes in the margins, and then putting like a little sticky tab. Let me show you an example. I don't always separate out colors like I did in this one, but in this one, the blue is all like a biographical information that is interesting to me. The pink shows where each short story begins. So it just kind of is like, you know, just to help me find the short stories. And then the beige ones are all like information, you know, interesting things that I found within the stories. So that one I have a little more detailed, but when I did the Scarlet Letter, it was all just beige and it was just all things that were interesting to me. But I am totally fine with marking up pages pretty significantly. One thing I have started doing though is if I'm not sure it's a book that I know and want to keep in my library, I will start off by just writing myself notes and page numbers. And then once I've read through it enough to realize, yeah, I want to keep this book, then I will start, you know, I'll go back and annotate those pages, put the little tabs in, and then move on from there. All right, number 5, introductions and footnotes. So how do you feel about introductions or footnotes? Do you read these? Do you avoid these? And what makes a good introduction? So for me, if it's an introduction from the author, I will usually read it because I figure that author is not going to give away his story in his introduction. Like, why would he do that? But if it's an introduction from anybody else, I usually avoid them because so many times, especially in classics, which is usually where you find introductions anyway, they will give it away. They will tell the whole story as if you already know it, right? And analyze it all with all of their scholarly whatevers. And that's so frustrating, right? And so I avoid those, and I don't often even go back to them afterward. If I want to know something about an author, I will usually actually Google that specific question rather than reading the introduction. If I want to get a feel for who this author is before I start reading their book, I will usually just like Wikipedia, right? Because Wikipedia is helpful in the way that it is divided up into categories. Like it will tell you, now I'm going to tell you about his early life. Now I'm going to tell you about his personal life. Now I'm going to tell you about his politics, right? So you can kind of get those little sections. Like, I don't want to know that yet, but I do want to know this sort of a thing. But yeah, I avoid introductions because they're just there's too many spoilers. Footnotes, same thing. Footnotes annoy the snot out of me. What am I reading? Oh, that's what really bugged me about the Lost Memoirs of Jane Austen that I talked about in my mid-month reading check-in a couple of days ago. Because there were so many footnotes that it bogged it down. I feel like footnotes should be very rare, right? Like most of that information just put into the story, especially in a fiction story. Footnotes, no, they don't appeal to me. Just way too distracting. All right, next one, number 6, accessories. Do you use bookish accessories? Like a clip-on reading light, a book sleeve, or annotation materials, like a book stand. Do you use anything like that when you're reading? For me, the only thing, like of those things that I mentioned that I use is sometimes I use a clip-on book light, especially when I'm traveling. So I read mostly at night after, you know, I've made dinner and like talked to my kids and like everybody's gone their own direction. Then I'm like, yes, it's time to read. And so I will get all settled in and read, but I've got a lamp right by my bed and the light doesn't bother my husband. He can just crash when he's tired. He goes straight to sleep. So I can stay up till 2 or 3 a.m. It doesn't bother him a bit. So I don't really use a book light, but if I'm traveling, especially with friends, then I do because, you know, they don't always appreciate my lamp being on that late. So I do have a clip-on book light, but usually my daughters steal it instead. And the book sleeve thing, though, I am planning on making some. In fact, that is something that I'm doing the next couple of days. I have a whole backlog of watch later videos for BookTube that I need to catch up on, and I listen to those while I am sewing. So that's what I'm going to be doing over the next couple of days. Like this is Thursday. Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm going to be doing my whole weekend. I'm really excited about it. I'm home most of the weekend. But anyway, I'm going to be making some book sleeves. I want to put some in my Etsy shop, but I'm going to kind of practice with a pattern and make a couple for myself. And so if you're not familiar with what a book sleeve is, it's like a cloth, basically just like a little thing, like a little pouch for your book. So you stick your book in there and then it has a little flap. You can close it up. Sometimes there's a pocket on the front so you could put annotation supplies in there, or like a little notebook if you like to, you know, take notes on your stuff, a little pen, whatever. It's whatever you need. And you can put it in your purse, your bag, backpack, whatever. And it keeps your book from, you know what it's like when you stick your book like in a bag and just, it'll get all bent up and stuff gets stuck in between the pages. And anyway, it keeps your books nicer. And so anyway, I'm going to mess around with those. And then I think I will use book sleeves for sure. I think that will be something that'll be really handy to me. So let us know, what kind of accessories do you have for your reading? Number 7, art and illustrations. So how do cover art and illustrations affect your reading experience? Like, do you buy a book based on its cover? Do you like illustrations? Do you not? For me, I definitely choose a book by its cover. I think that there are so many just beautiful covers out there that just pull me in, and then I read it and I'm like, why did I do this? Because, sometimes the stories are just not good and the art is so beautiful. And depending on what I'm reading, will determine whether or not I prefer illustrations. So in children's books, like children's novels, yes, illustrations are great. And even some adult fiction I've read is illustrated, and I just think it adds such a neat element. I'm thinking of like Jack Finney's Time and Again. That is illustrated with old photos from New York in the 1800s or early 1900s. And that's such a neat element to add in there. So I am all for cover art and illustrations, definitely. Number 8, format. Which format of books do you prefer? Hardback, paperback, audiobooks, digital, and do you do different things for different situations? So for me, I prefer paperback most of the time. It's easier for me to read them. It's easier for me to not worry about like throwing them around so much. With a hardback, I usually take the dust cover off when I'm reading it so that I don't get it all bent up and weird. And then my paperbacks, I usually don't care at all how, what happens to them. I don't listen to a lot of audiobooks. I want to listen to more. I do have an Audible subscription and I have yet to listen to it yet, and I just keep racking up free credits every month but I just don't use it. So I would like to use it and I just keep paying for it. So yeah. And I would listen to those in the car, and I would listen to them while I'm sewing, except for there's just so many great booktube channels that I would rather listen to you guys, to be honest. So we'll see. If I don't crack open that Audible in the next couple of months, I'm gonna probably unsubscribe. And then digital books, no, I do not use an e-reader. I really struggle to read books on my phone or on the computer. Like I just won't do that. Like there's a lot of opportunities for, getting free books in a PDF, like for review, NetGalley or whatever, that kind of stuff. I just don't do those stuff because I really struggle to look at the screen for that amount of time. And everything runs together, and I feel like I want to rush through it. I can't just sort of get into it. And I do a lot of my reading like laying down with a book right here. And so I just feel like that would be so dangerous and painful when I'm dropping out my face. There's just a lot of reasons, but my husband has wanted to get me an e-reader over and over again, and I won't do it. Don't get me one. Just give me book money and I'll go buy paper books. All right, and then that's it. Number 9 is just to tag some people. I'm going to tag Debs from Rainer Reads because you tag me all the time, which is super great, and I want you to do my tag. I'm going to tag Linda from Elder Talk because she had talked about wanting to do more tags, and I think she has a fantastic, fabulous, sweet channel. And who else am I going to tag? I'm going to tag a bunch of people because this is a brand new tag. So I will put all of you guys in the description box. Everybody I'm going to tag. I hope everybody does it. If you didn't get tagged, but you want to do it, please do it. Pass it on to your friends. Shout it from the rooftops. Do my tag. I enjoyed doing this. It was fun to put together. And I think I'm going to be one of those people that like puts together tags because I got questions. Things that I want to know about. I hope this was fun for you guys. I will see you soon. Bye-bye.